Not have perfect skin, and I act like it though because I put makeup on to hide my blemishes and scars. So let me show you how I achieve a more flawless look that is definitely cheating, but who cares, right? Because we're girls and that's why we're special. I like to use a primer, but I'm not going to put it on right now. I use this brush. This is the Real Techniques buffing brush, and it has the dual fiber, so it's easier to clean. You can really use any brush you want. I've definitely used these. This is a Sigma F05. I'll put the links below to the brushes that I use just so that you can kind of get an idea if you like something more than others. But I like this one because it just kind of like buffs it in a little bit more. I use this flat top one. I just used it, so it's kind of dirty. And I've also used these kind of dual fiber brushes. These are also nice to buff in the product and leave it a little bit less cakey. So those are all my recommendations for brushes. I use Studio Fix Fluid in, right now I'm NC40. In the summer I'm NC42. This foundation is full coverage. It leaves a matte finish and it's good for oily skin. Anyways, I'm just gonna do one solid squirt on my brush. Start off by tapping it on my cheeks. This is where I get the most blemishes, so on my cheeks and chin. And then I also have some freckles here that don't really show up that well. They're not like really pretty freckles. Like one of my sisters and my mom, they had like the pretty freckles that actually look like freckles. Mine just look like pores. And I'm just going to stipple it. I like to pat it first and then buff it in. Make sure that you're getting it on the side of your face, kind of near your ear, underneath the jawline. So I mostly concentrated it on my cheeks. I'm just going to squirt a little bit more on those areas that are just stubborn. I'm just going to pat that on. Put a little bit on my nose and then just a little bit on my forehead. I don't like to do crazy forehead like up to here. I like to just do a little bit here because my forehead's fine. It's not really, there's not like pimples or anything like that there. So I'm going to go back underneath of my cheeks where I put that foundation and buff that in. So now I look kind of ghostly. That's just because of this light, this LED light. I don't know what kind of light to use, so I use an LED one because it's just the brightest. So sometimes when I look really pale, I really don't in the mirror. It's just the light and the camera, how I capture it. And then what I use as my concealer, and you guys have seen me use a few of these. I use the L'Oreal one, which I really need to throw out. This is probably going to be an empties. The Maybelline one, which I used in my last Get Ready With Me video. This is really bright, but I like to use it when I go out. This is the one that's probably the closest match to under my eyes. This is NC35 in MAC Pro Longwear concealer. It's so hard to control the pump. Just one teeny dot. So I have enough on both fingers and I just tap it underneath my eyes. I have a little bit of like purpley redness underneath my eyes that I just want to get rid of. I just have to set my foundation. If you have oily skin, and again, this is more for like girls who have oily skin, while it's great because it keeps us looking young forever, it's also really annoying because usually I get really oily around here and I just have to blot a lot, and this I find helps me the most. I use banana powder and Studio Fix Plus powder. I depotted my Studio Fix Plus powder, but this is what it looks like. And I use a more fluffy brush. These are the best ones. I like this one and this one from Real Techniques. And I also like to use a flat top one from e.l.f. These you can get like at Target. So I'm going to first dip some of the banana powder, so you can see that all over, and like pat it down. The worst thing is to do all that, especially if you're covering blemishes, because all that's going to do is pick up the foundation and move it around, and it's going to take away the coverage that you just worked hard to put on. So don't swirl it because you're setting it first. I like a more matte finish. I don't like to look shiny, but I like to add my own highlight where I want it, and as opposed to I'm getting oily throughout the day. My face looks a little dead and there's no structure to my face. It just looks like a round thing. So I'm going to move on to contouring and highlighting. My favorite contouring color is MAC Shadester, and it's the Sculpting powder. This is a pro item, so you can't really get them at any other store. But now pro items are available online, so you can totally go online and order one of those. They have different colors, Sculpt and all these other colors, but that's my favorite. Is the Small Contour F05 brush by Sigma. This, I love it. It's my favorite. I tap a little bit on, and I do the dumb fishy face like this. If you have a harsh light on you, it's going to be easier to find that, you know, that your cheekbone and that structure, because you're going to see that shadow naturally. But what I do is do this and you can see it more. Don't go in it. Do a little bit above it. Go from where you see it and then brush up. And also go into your hairline. And make sure you're blending it. Try not to go anywhere closest to your cheek because then it's going to look really muddy and kind of dirty. What I also do is you can find where your temples are. It's kind of where it kind of goes in and then it goes back out with your cheekbones. So put the contour powder right in there. What that's doing is that it's adding more contrast to your cheekbones by placing a dark color. So now it's just going to bring your cheekbones that much more forward. And then I also like to put a little bit of contour on my forehead. Blush, I like Peaches blush. Just a nice soft peachy color, and it's good for tanned and olive skin people. She is good for everybody. What I like to do when I put blush is go, and all it does is bring out your cheekbones a little bit. And I blend it in with my contour color, so it kind of marries together. I'm not big on a lot of blush. A couple of my sisters can't live without blush and put too much, I think, but that's just them. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of highlighting. I like to only highlight on certain areas. So it's going to be the top of your cheekbones and a little bit on your brow bone because that's the furthest thing that's out. So I'm using this powder by MAC. It's the Whisper of Guilt. This is a limited edition one. So another example would be to use like a beauty cosmetics, like the kind that you have at the malls. Some of these powders are really good for highlighting because they're really shimmery. So you can always use that too. I'm just going to use a little bit of this with a thicker compact brush. And I'm putting it over my brow and on top of my cheek. I'm not so much putting it all right here because then it's just going to bring out a lot of bumps and imperfections, and I don't want to do that. I'm just putting in the tops. That's my foundation routine. That's what I use. That's my preference, what I think that works best for my kind of skin type and skin tone, and how I want my skin to look when it's finished. It works for me, and I'm not perfect. I don't have perfect skin. It looks like it in pictures, and it's because of the lighting, the camera, and my foundation. So there, the secret's out. Not perfect skin.